In today's face reading, we are looking at Joe Rogan and specifically the features on his face that point to a strong liver, some hormonal stress signs, as well as his sexual and creative drives. Enjoy. All right, y'all. Today on the menu, we got Joe Rogan. If you are new to the channel, please go down to the description box, watch the 5-minute crash course video on face reading. That'll give you a nice orientation to how these readings go down, what face reading is, what it isn't. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. So let's get right into Joe Rogan. The features that jump out the most to me are these liver lines right here in the middle. So liver lines, what they mean is that the liver system, the liver organ system is on overdrive a little bit. So we have to look at the organs slightly differently in the East than we do in the Western context. The liver regulates anger and irritability on one side, and then the other side of the coin, the positive side, vigor and drive. How well we chase our dreams, how much energy we have to complete tasks, how much lasting power we have in bed, that's all liver energetics. When we see these lines, that's indicative of the liver being in overdrive a bit. So those lines show up oftentimes with people who are drawn to martial arts or fighters. So start looking at people's faces who are fighters, people that you know who have a lot of grit and determination, or people that are drawn to martial arts. This mark shows up quite a bit on them. It's not even pathological. It just means that the liver system is very strong. People with strong livers, when they have these marks, that's a sign that they need small, consistent confrontations. A person with a strong liver does not want to sit on conflict. They will blow and pop way more than the average person. So nobody should repress their emotions. It's not good for anyone. But with liver marks or liver profiles and liver energy in the mix, you really don't want to do that. And one of the easiest ways to regulate your liver terrain is by consistent exercise, which Joe Rogan does. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He studied Taekwondo. I think he was a Taekwondo instructor in his youth. He does kettlebells. So that's a very good thing. When I see these lines on people's faces when I'm giving them lifestyle guidance, I ask them right away, hey, do you exercise? Because if you don't, you should be. So it's very nice to see when someone who has these marks who is doing the very thing that helps manage that. It's pretty cool to see because in the end, hopefully, our features are pointing to natural aptitudes and strengths. And if people are doing them, it's a good sign. It's like, hey, you found your way without ever looking at Eastern philosophy or doing anything. You've just listened to yourself. And that's really the name of the game in the big picture. So strong liver. This also points us right down into his mouth. So I've mentioned this in other videos. When we see a thinner upper lip and a fuller lower lip, this is a sign in face reading of high libido. So technically, the mouth is an earth element feature and it relates specifically to the pleasurable sensory experiences of life. It's about enjoying the 5 senses: taste, touch, scent, sight, all of that. And so when we see sort of an overinflated lower lip, it's sort of like an overinflation of pleasurable things. Specifically, thin upper lip, lower lip is full. That's usually high sex drive, an overinflation of pleasure seeking to a certain degree. Now, I don't know what Joe Rogan's sex drive is like now. He's an older man. He's probably still pretty good. I'm guessing he's in good shape. But in his younger days, I'm guessing he had a very, very high sex drive. And let's be real, a lot of young men do. But with this feature, I would say probably more than the average person. He probably had sex on the brain quite a bit. And given his lifestyle, stand-up comedian on TV in Hollywood, that probably happened. He was probably cashing in on that quite a bit. That would be my guess. So the thing to think about, there's a relationship between these liver lines here and the high sex drive in the mouth. The liver channel, the liver meridian, the meridian pathway that they use in acupuncture to treat liver disharmony, that pathway goes down the front of the body and wraps around the sex organs. So when we see liver markers, what that means is that the pathway of that channel is going to be stimulated, and that channel wraps around the sex organs in men and women. So it's just kind of one of the, correlative markers that we can see in Chinese medicine and Eastern philosophy. Got the high libido mouth, these liver marks, very strong chance he has a high sex drive. That would be the thing to look at. Now, the other side of the coin is when a person has a high sex drive, and I've worked with people who have this mouth and this mark, I always ask them, do you have creative outlets? Because you are going to need them. And they always say, why? The reason why is because sexual energy and creative energy are two sides of the same coin. Sexual energy is the ultimate creative energy because engaging in sex will quite literally create another human life. So you want to think, Chinese medicine and Eastern philosophy looks at these things as like two-way streets. You can stimulate it from either way. Yes, you can oversex yourself and go down that road to circulate the energy, or you can just allocate it into creative endeavors. And luckily, Joe Rogan has creative outlets. He is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, definitely in art. He's a stand-up comedian, definitely in art. He also, in his youth, loved to draw. I don't know if he still does now, but he loves artwork. He loves getting art from fans. He's got cool art in his studio. He likes art, and he's got imaginative ideas. Those are all creative attributes and markers that, again, he's doing the very thing he should be doing. The things that I would be suggesting, he's already doing, which is always a good sign in terms of life nourishment, because that's the name of the game with face reading, is that you're looking for these markers saying, hey, you probably run this way, most likely. There's going to be some exceptions to the rule, but you probably are running this way. And are you doing the things that are going to make your life easier? And these are the things that would make Joe's life easier, and he's doing them, and he's doing well. So I always say, in terms of life nourishment and life path, he's doing a pretty good job. Now, where I'm concerned with Joe is his kidney system, his water element system. When we see these dark marks under the eyes, this is indicative of the kidney system being taxed. So we've got to look at this in a bigger picture. The kidney system is sort of the energetic infrastructure that houses our constitutional strength, what they call Jing in Chinese medicine. Your Jing relates to your constitutional strength, your genetic strength, how much robust vitality you have. If we think of a kerosene lantern, the kerosene at the bottom, the fluid, would be the Jing, the flame would be the Qi, or the energy, and then the light that is emitted into the room would be the Shen, or the spirit. It's the part that changes the vibe of the room, but you can't really see it, but you can kind of feel it. People are no different. Jing, Qi, and Shen. And the Jing resides in the kidney system. It resides in the low back. And on top of the kidneys, we have the adrenals. The adrenals are responsible for the mothers who have their children pinned under a car and they're able to lift the vehicle. It gives us inordinate human strength. So what the East says is when that happens, you're burning up some of that kerosene pretty quickly to do something that had to happen. But you don't want to be taxing that system all the time. And we can tax this system, the kidney system, the adrenals, through too many stimulants. Joe Rogan drinks a lot of caffeine. He's always drinking Monsters and Red Bulls, drinks a lot of coffee. So you can do it through too many stimulants. You can do it through too much sex, too much overwork, and collectively, too much of everything. Burning the candle from both ends, doing too many things. Joe Rogan is very, very busy, but my guess is, even in his younger days, he had these marks, probably a constitutional deficiency. And you know what? We all leak somewhere. No one comes into this life perfect. We all leak in some organ. So it looks like Joe Rogan leaks here, but he also started taking testosterone replacement therapy in his late 30s. He also started taking growth hormone. And the way the East looks at that is when you start taking exogenous hormones, first of all, no judgment. Joe can do whatever the hell he wants. We all get to wield our life force the way we want. But the East says there should be a natural, slow natural decline in our hormones. And yes, we want to try to optimize them and keep them up. But if we keep them at the same level that we were when we were 25 or 27, it's like you're revving up the electricity through a system that can no longer hold that wattage. It's almost like as we age, the pathway or the tunnel that holds all of that energy starts to shrink naturally because, right, we're getting older. And if you pump it back open with hormones, it really stresses the system. And it's not like by Joe Rogan taking these substances has cleaned up these kidney markers. If anything, Joe has continued to age, and I actually would say he's aging maybe a little faster than he should. He looks a little more tired and a little more weathered. Part of that's his work, and I think part of that is he's using borrowed energy. And that's sort of the way the Eastern context looks at hormone replacement therapy, is borrowed energy. You're borrowing energy and putting it through a system that maybe isn't working as well. So again, no judgment. He can do whatever he wants. But this is something to think about. And the way that you can remediate this a bit, and if Joe Rogan were my lifestyle client, I would say cut out all stimulants. No more coffee. Just stop. Let your body actually feel its own energy. I would say that he needs to be in float tanks. every week. And I know he's a fan of them, and maybe he owns one, but being in one would be great for him, because the classical image for restoring the kidney energetics is laying in a dark room that's pitch black, totally silent, on your back. That's exactly what a float tank is, with the added benefit of gravity being taken off your body because you're floating. So these are the things to think about. His water element system is taxed, and I don't think his hormone replacement is helping him age better in the deepest energetic context. Yes, he is still muscular. Yes, he's still strong. And I think he still feels good. He says he does. He eats well, he exercises, but I think that will catch up to him at some point. I think there will be a payment for that at some point. I don't know when. Now, his natural face and his inner persona, when we look at his mirrored images, the natural face and inner persona look pretty close. And this is actually a lucky sign or an auspicious marker in face reading, because it means what you see in the real world is what you get in real time with him. So basically, Joe Rogan is the same guy that you see when you're on the podcast. Who you're talking to is really him. And he does come off that way. He comes off as a real guy, doesn't pull any punches, and that's a good thing. His public persona side is wider, looks a little more yang, a little more alpha. And when someone has a wider right side, that means should they decide to do anything in the public sphere, whether it's selling in boardrooms, you're doing public relations, you've got a podcast, it means you're well equipped to do that kind of thing. The last little thing about the liver person, these liver marks, is that liver people need these small confrontations. They need small, little, tiny confrontations consistently rather than waiting for something to build up. And I think Joe Rogan does that well on his podcast, because I see him challenge people consistently. And again, it looks like a lot of the markers that I would see and I would make suggestions for, Joe is already living, which means he's fulfilling his life path pretty well. He's navigating his life terrain in a good way. So that's my reading on Joe Rogan. If you got questions, put them below. And if there's someone else you'd like me to read, please let me know. Thanks.